security risk.
Oh, it would be a real security risk, my friends. So, there you go. There you have it. The wars are about drugs. We tolerate opium production in Afghanistan because that's what funds the banksters and the wars, my friends. So, speaking of the banksters, the old boys, the multi-generational serial killers, let's get to the econocrash updates, of which there are many and frightening stories all around the world. First one we'll hit from businessweek.com. Americans seeking reward money inform the IRS on others. Americans seeking reward money are turning in neighbors, clients, and employees, or rather employers, they suspect of cheating on taxes to the IRS at a rate of nearly 8 per day, the director of the agency's whistleblower program said. A horrible misuse of the term whistleblower. Steve Whitlock, the director, told an audience of about 200 lawyers, investigators, and government officials at a Miami Beach conference on offshore banking that his office receives 40 to 50 tips per month, alleging tax liability in excess of $2 million. Americans submit another 200 per month, alleging smaller violations. Whitlock said submissions have surged since the enactment in 2006 of a law that requires the IRS to pay awards of between 15 and 30% in cases where more than $2 million is collected. Ratting out your friends and associates for a few dirty pieces of silver, my friends. And again, if you didn't see this stuff and you didn't read it in print, you wouldn't believe it. And unfortunately, a lot of folks aren't seeing this and aren't reading this in print because they're still lapping up their news from the corporate-controlled media. And again, that's what we try and do here through MediaMonarchy.com, is give you the text and the subtext and the context of what's going on and try and light a fire under your ass to do more research. And again, I'm not the smartest guy in the world at all. I just pay attention. Stocks extend a plunge on concerns about Greece. That was from the Associated Press yesterday, where we know that gold pushed above $1,200 in after-hours trading as the U.S. stock market melted down. That's right. The stock market dove, I believe it was not as much since the 87 crash, but it regained. So let's grab something from the Economic Collapse blog. In one of the most dizzying half hours in stock market history, the Dow plunged nearly 1,000 points on Thursday, May 6th, before bouncing back to close down at 347.8. This represented the biggest intraday decline since 1987. But what made this crash so absolutely shocking is that it happened in the course of less than an hour. Between 2 and 3 p.m., the Dow lost over 700 points before dramatically bouncing back about 600 points. So, what happened? And these are 8 theories from the Economic Collapse blog that we'll just run down quickly. Was it a bad trade? Was it a computer glitch? Was it cascading stop losses? Was it hackers? Was it cyber terrorism? Was it fear of the European debt crisis spreading? Was it a real panic? Or was it a stop-loss hunting expedition? Again, some of these things get into somewhat complicated econocrash terms. But if we hit businessinmedia.org, we'll see that CNBC's Maria Bartiromo said, quote, "This really sounds like market manipulation to me," end quote. Let's also note from Washington's blog, and we made a reference to this, I believe, last week in the econocrash updates. Forget complicated arguments about the benefits of public banking. Just check out a chart from Business Insider. North Dakota is the only state to currently have a higher level of economic activity year over year. They have their own public bank. They are the only state with its own public bank. So the only question is, any questions? Members of Congress bet against stocks. As the economy continued to crash, some members of Congress made risky bets with their own money that U.S. stocks or bonds would fall during the financial crisis. A Wall Street Journal analysis of congressional disclosures show senators criticized Goldman Sachs for profiting from the housing collapse, and Congress is considering legislation to curb Wall Street risk-taking, including the use of financial instruments known as derivatives and of leverage. But 13 members of Congress or their spouses showed bearish bets made in 2008 via exchange-traded funds portfolios that trade like stocks and mirror an index. So the question, again from the economiccollapseblog.com, how is the U.S. economy supposed to succeed when our politicians and big banks are making billions betting against it? When we get to the 9/11 updates at the end of episode 169, we'll get into some of the insider trading and some of the updates there. News Junkie Post says we should call the banksters and the complicit, corrupt Congress and all their cronies in the corporate power, in the executive branch. Let's call them what they really are, and that is fascist. And again, Mussolini, who is credited with coining the term fascism, said corporatism would be the more appropriate term. And whether the state takes over the corporations like in communism or corporations take over the state, isn't the end result the goddamn same thing? A fascinating story by way of the Los Angeles Times, and we'll only briefly brush into this. A room with a view to one big mystery is the title of the article. Why did a counterfeiter setup face the Los Angeles Federal Reserve Office? Cryptagon.com has some updates on one of the guys connected in this, Brian Alexic, where we also discovered that in this spot across the street from the Federal Reserve, where there just happened to be a Ponzi scheme running. Again, if you're going to do something like that, why would you go and do it across the street from the banksters? Why would Lee Harvey Oswald have his office right across from ONI and DOD in New Orleans? But there was a tile mosaic replica of the CIA logo on the floor and a portrait of Hugo Chavez hanging above it. On a bit of resistance note, my friends, Bank of America, multiple Bank of America terminals hit with Mark of the Beast graffiti.
Several Albuquerque Bank of America locations are targets of vandalism. It's an extreme attack with bold numbers and symbols that are puzzling people passing by.
Now an email sent to Eyewitness News 4 gives us a hint at why an attack like this would happen. Christina Rada is live from one of the targeted banks near Carlisle and Candelaria. Christina?
Antoinette and Joe, there are many questions. Why Bank of America? Why so many locations? And why only in Albuquerque? Questions that a viewer email could help us answer. But first, I want to show you some of the graffiti. Take a look at this. It's very similar, if not exactly the same, to that found at a downtown Bank of America just a few blocks away from the downtown police station.
A stunned viewer snapped these shots. In bold red, there's a heart, a money symbol. Then in black, the number 666. There's paint splatter on glass, ATMs are drenched, and even a Bank of America sign took a hit. The city says in all 6 banks were vandalized. But why? All morning long, we received calls from stunned Bank of America customers with the same question. Then came this email speaking out against major corporations like Bank of America. It says, we the working class are tired of being slaves to the credit system and financial institutions. We must take direct action against the institutions that have failed us. Through peaceful acts of civil disobedience, our first action has been to target these same financial institutions that have robbed the people blind. We emailed the person who sent this, but didn't hear back.